Hey guys, 2Legit City here. Today in the game of Oxygen Not Included, we're going to be going over some of the Oni basics regarding the Pacu critter. We'll be explaining how the Pacu and its variants work, how to get started with ranching them, as well as provide some example designs and setups. The Pacu is one of 3 variations of the aquatic critter that are required to be in water in order for them to thrive. When out of water, the Pacus will be flopping around and will flop towards either water or polluted water if possible, otherwise they will flop around randomly. Although being out of water will not outright kill them, they will not be able to lay eggs when flopping around, so it's recommended to keep the critters in the proper habitat. When trying to change the egg type being laid, the body temperature of the parent Pacu is the only factor. Tropical fish egg chance increases when the parent's body temp is between 35 and 80 Celsius, while the goldfish egg chance increases when the body temp is between -30 Celsius and +5 Celsius. Regardless of the variation, the egg chance changes at a rate of 4% per cycle according to its body temp. The variations are not too much different as the Pacus are mainly just a source of food. The only thing a tropical Pacu has different is that it has an increased starting body temperature while having an increased decor value when compared to the others, and the goldfish is the only Pacu with an actual effect. Although it has a lower starting body temperature as well, the actual effect of the Pacu is that it will purify any polluted water like a water sieve, converting it into regular water at a rate of 200 grams per second. All Pacus share the same diet plan, eating seeds and algae, while producing polluted dirt equal to 50% of the consumed mass. Since the Pacus only have a 25 cycle lifespan and provide seafood when they die, they are a very popular source of both food and lime. Each Pacu provides 1,000 kcals of raw seafood that could be turned into 1,600 kcals of cooked seafood, while also providing 2 kilograms of eggshells per egg. Also note that seafood adds a bit of radiation resistance in the Spaced Out DLC. Now that was a quick overview of the Pacus, let's start looking at the ranching details. Ranching Pacus is very different when compared to other critters. Since Pacus are aquatic critters, there is no way to groom them to keep them happy, and instead their happiness is tied to being fed from the fish feeder. The fish feeder is also the only way to tame the fish, although the tameness of the parent will pass along to every egg it lays. This means that it's important to keep the fish tank clean of seeds or algae, as the fish may choose to eat the food off the ground instead of from the feeder. If you don't, it's going to take a longer time to tame the Pacu, or it's going to lose its reproductive bonus from being happy, since the 8 from feeder buff only lasts for 1 cycle. Every time they eat, they're going to lose a wildness factor of 20%, however, there is a natural 5% occurring, netting them a change of 15% per cycle. This means that it should take around 7 cycles to tame a Pacu, but that is only true when using algae as the fish food and limiting the delivery to 1 kilograms per cycle. Wild Pacus will not eat as often from a fish feeder when being fed seeds due to the amount of calorie it provides, even when limiting the amount of seeds being fed. It takes about roughly 31 cycles for a wild Pacu to become fully tame when only utilizing seeds. If you're trying to decide what to feed the already tamed fish, seeds are actually the best food source in terms of kcals per kilogram. Algae only provides 1 kcal per kilogram, while seeds reset the kcals of the Pacu to 500 every time they eat. It's also recommended that you select a specific seed when feeding your fish, since you can accidentally feed the Pacu rare seeds that don't regrow, like the wheezewort or oxyfern, or any of the decor plants. There's also no way to forbid feeding mutant seeds accidentally, so please keep that in mind. Pacus require at least 8 tiles of water to not be overcrowded, otherwise it will be unhappy. Mesh tiles and pneumatic doors that allow the body of water to be shared can compromise the Pacu as they detect all the other fish in the same body of water. This means that if you have an abundance of Pacu in another room, but sharing the same body of water through mesh or pneumatic tiles, they're gonna still get the overcrowded debuff. On the other hand, you could also use this mechanic to limit the movement of the Pacu while not overcrowding it. The Pacu also will continue flopping in water tiles if the mass of the water tile is not equal to or greater than 350 kilograms. Also, due to the overcrowded and cramped debuff, it's recommended to remove the eggs from the Pacu tanks as soon as possible so that they can continue reproducing at the maximum rate. In order to capture and relocate Pacus, you're going to have to use fish traps and fish releases to move the critter. They aren't wrangleable, and fish traps require plastic, so most people tend to remove Pacus just by moving the eggs and waiting for them to hatch. let's get started with some ranching designs, and we'll get started with wild ranching first. When wild ranching, you do not need to provide any food for the Pacus, and you're only looking to prevent the critters from becoming cramped. We'll show you two designs, but they're both conceptually the same, but vary due to duplicate labor. The first design is very early game friendly and does not even require automation. Duplicants will automatically take all fish eggs and put them into the door via the dropper. Since the room is locked, duplicants can't go inside and the eggs are right outside of their range, preventing them from creating an infinite sweeping loop. This effectively makes other duplicants grab all the eggs in their pathing range, so you don't have to manually add any new eggs you find. Since all eggs are dropped into the open pneumatic door, where they're considered outside of the room, this prevents the cramping buff from occurring to the already swimming Pacus. Now, Pacus will always flop towards the water, so we have the fish tank right below the open pneumatic door, so once the eggs are hatched, they could easily relocate themselves without any duplicate labor. The water tank size will also not matter in this case, as the happiness stat does not exist for the wild Pacus. Please note that the eggshells will not be accessible when utilizing this design. The second design is very simple. All you're going to need is to have a auto super loader combo and have the auto super have the range cover the entirety of the fish tank. This allows you to sweep all the eggs out and drop them off into an open pneumatic door right on top of the tank so that any newly hatched Pacu could flop back inside, creating an infinite wild ranching loop. Of course, this is a very easy design that requires no duplicate labor. Wild ranching is great all around, with the only downsides being scale and wait times. Now, when trying to domesticate the Pacu, you have to start worrying about feeding them as well as keeping them happy and cramp-free. We already explained how the different foods affect Pacu taming, so let's go straight into the design. The design is early game friendly and has duplicants delivering 1 kg of algae per cycle. We limit the delivery by dragging down the slider the fish feeder to 1 kg, so duplicants never carry more than that at a time. Since the Pacus will also eat up to 140 kilograms of algae per cycle if given the chance to, we want to limit the deliveries to 1 kg so that the Pacu constantly eat from the feeder every time we make a delivery. This allows us to have the 8 from feeder buff up constantly and allows us to have the maximum tame conversion rate, and that's something seeds can't accomplish. For the automation, all you have to do is tie the bottom door to a cycle sensor, having the active time line up to the schedule of your ranchers, and the duration is going to be set to a percentage equal to the amount of travel time your ranchers take. 1% on the active duration is equal to about 6 seconds, with the goal being is having your duplicants inside delivering the algae before the door locks. Once inside though, we have a one-way door on top of the door that's tied to the cycle sensor so that the duplicants that are trapped inside always have a way to leave. If you were to choose to tame the Pacu with seeds instead of algae, you actually don't need a design. All you will need to do is put the fish feeder filled with seeds on top of the fish tank and wait to 31 cycles. The Pacus will eat seeds at a rate of 0.33 kilograms per cycle, and since the minimum amount you can put into the fish feeder is 1 kilogram, it's pointless to limit the feeding. If you did use algae initially to tame the Pacu, it's recommended to move away from feeding them algae long term and switch to seeds as soon as you can, as it's more sustainable. When thinking about feeding the Pacu long term, all you need to do is make sure they always have K-cows. Here we have a design for the already domesticated Pacu. After the domesticated Pacu lays his eggs and dies, we actually pull one egg from that domesticated stack into the incubator so that we could continue the cycle of laying more and more Pacu eggs. Once the original Pacu dies, the mechanized airlock beneath the incubator is going to close, tied to the critter sensor. This allows the auto super to pull a stack from the tamed eggs into the incubator so that it could start incubating. This was going to allow your dupes to lullaby to the egg so that it could hatch in about a cycle, and then it's going to allow the fish to flop back into the original tank. Now after the Pacu egg hatches, we're actually going to leave it in the incubator. That's because we have a critter sensor here tied to the top mechanized airlock. This critter sensor is detecting only the critters and not the eggs, and this is going to close the door as soon as the Pacu egg hatches. We have that actually tied to a filter as well, so that this allows the Pacu to flop out of this room into the bottom room and back into the feeding tank. This keeps the door closed so that the auto super doesn't accidentally sweep an additional egg to the incubator. This allows us to get only one Pacu back into the feeding tank, allowing us to continue the process. To recap all the automation and the setups, we have a critter sensor in the feeding room that's set to above 0, counting only critters. This is going to be tied to the mechanized airlock right below the incubator. Inside the incubator room, we have another critter sensor that's set to below 1 on critters only. This is tied to the filter gate and then to the mechanized airlock afterwards, and the filter gate's set to 5 seconds. The bottom sweeper is able to sweep out from the extra room and the feeding room, so that we could have all the starvation ranching happening, and as well as only having the loader within access of the bottom auto sweeper. Top auto sweeper cannot sweep to the loader so that you don't get an infinite loop. Now what do you do with all the eggs? Once you get the ranch going, you're going to get about 12 to 13 eggs per Pacu, assuming all the conditions are met, and you might not know what to do. One of the options is actually utilizing the fry egg as a source of raw egg, since the fry egg is the best source of raw egg. If you guys didn't know, I have a video that actually shows you how to automatically cook all the raw egg into omelets, and I'll leave a link in the descriptions down below so you guys can check that out. Another option you guys have is actually starvation ranching. If you guys keep the Pacu that is tame in a 1-tile fish tank and keep all of the other fish eggs out of that room, you're actually going to be able to create a starvation ranch. By doing what's similar to the wild ranching setup, you actually are able to keep the fish and get a new egg before it dies. Very similar to the wild ranch, and it's on the same cycle count at age 20. This is because once the fish is tame, it's unhappy. And if the fish is unhappy, you actually get a metabolism decrease, meaning that they consume less food. This allows the fish to actually go through its entire age of 25 cycles without dying, since it's actually a low enough of a reduction that the fish is able to survive. Now, because of that, and the base rate is at 7%, you're going to get a fish egg at age 20. Assuming you sweep that out and it never cramps, this is going to be an indefinite process, meaning that each tame egg is going to replace itself. And that also means that as long as you're keeping your Pacu ranch running, you're going to get a lot of Pacu. You might want to watch out for that, as that's going to eventually lag your game out. But the starvation ranch is very simple, very similar to wild ranching. And with that, guys, that has been the Pacus Explained with some Pacu ranching designs as well. If you guys have any questions, please leave a comment down below. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And of course, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you, guys.